Welcome to the Seniors Serving Seniors Blue Book Podcast. On today's podcast, Executive Director Vicki Pilot talks to Dr. Diana Wiley. Dr. Diana Wiley is a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified sex therapist. She's been counseling individuals and couples in the Seattle area for more than 40 years. In this wide-ranging conversation, she talks about sex and intimacy as couples age, with a focus on older women's sexuality. Now, just a word of warning. Things get pretty spicy as the conversation progresses, so you might not want your children or grandchildren around as you listen. You know how easily young people get embarrassed these days when older people talk about sex. Dr. Wiley starts the conversation by introducing herself.
Hello, I'm Dr. Diana Wiley, and Vicki, you might know this. I'm not sure that we talked about this off screen, but I come from a long line of lusty ladies. And my grandmother and my mother were sexually active until their early 90s. And when I was in my 20s, I used to be able to talk to my grandmother, my mother's mother, a little more easily than my mother. And I had questions for her about sexuality and relationships. And this is way before I even thought of becoming a licensed marriage and family therapist and a board certified sex therapist, way before that. And so I asked my grandmother, when do you think sexual desire ends? And she smiled and she had a twinkle in her eye and she said, I'll let you know. And her sexual, yes. And she was lucky because she did have a partner in her retirement community. And so they were sexually active and she had, and so I got a master's degree 40 years ago, and then later got a PhD. And the PhD and my thesis specialized in human sexuality and clinical sexology. So I'm very precisely designed to talk about aging and sexuality. And in 1995, I was appointed as a White House for the White House Conference on Aging. And Bill Clinton, who was president then, had decided to do a conference on aging. It hadn't been done by a U.S. president in many years. And I knew Bill Clinton. We were friends when he was a Rhodes Scholar, when he was in England, and then later continued to be friends. So, but he appointed me to the White House Conference on Aging, and I was qualified. And it turned out I was the only delegate at this White House conference to talk about sexuality and aging. And most of the other topics were Alzheimer's and things like that. But I got to talk about aging and sexuality. I did some studies with Dr. Walter Bortz I'm just looking for the copy of, here it is, Dr. Walter Bortz, and it was later published this was published in the San Francisco Chronicle, and this was July 15th, 1994. So Dr. Walter Bortz out of Stanford University, at that time I lived in Palo Alto, California, we did these two studies on aging and sexuality. And one was with the Senior Center in Palo Alto. And we gave all the participants questionnaires, and it was an ongoing workshop and information and all of that. And we got questionnaires from over 100 seniors, men and women. And the problem then, the biggest problem then for men was, as they called it back then, impotence. We now refer to it as erectile dysfunction. And of course, this was pre-Viagra, because Viagra was approved in 1998. I remember it well. I had a radio show then in Hawaii where I was living at the time, and I brought on a cardiologist, a urologist, and we talked about this new drug, and it was great. Anyway, the biggest problem that we discovered, and these studies from the San Francisco, these studies that were done were later published in medical journals. And so then I got to call myself a gerontologist, somebody who studies aging. But it began with my sexually active grandma, who was so vital and alive. So now I'm well into my 70s, and so is my husband, and we practice what I preach.
That's excellent.
So we have a robust sex life, which is wonderful. And he also helped me with my book, Love in the Time of Corona.
I love that.
And it's a year's worth of sex therapy in one volume.
Available on Amazon.
Available on Amazon. That's right, Vicki. The biggest problem for women that we discovered back in 93 and 94 was lack of opportunity. Either their husbands were ill or had died, or they were divorced women. So lack of opportunity, and women tend to live 5 years longer than men. And so anyway, so a lot of women are alone, and this is true. This was true all these years ago, and I think it's true now. Of course it is. And so lack of opportunity, and then for women too, it was uncomfortable sex or painful intercourse. I try to get my clients to use the word intercourse because I think of sex as so much more than.
Right. Yeah.
And in my book, I talk about in chapter 4, using touch to reduce stress. And there are lots of exercises there for outer course or sensate focus. Sensate focus is a term that Masters and Johnson came up with. They were sex researchers. Some of in the audience, even though they were American, they did a lot of research that really pretty much created my field of sex therapy in the 50s and 60s. And Virginia Johnson of Masters and Johnson came up with sensate focused. She noticed in their research that so many couples were paying too much attention or too genitally focused. So, think about it. Our bodies from the top of our heads to the bottom of our feet have all these potential erotic zones. We're not familiar with them. And we get stuck between the legs. And that's not bad, but there are these other possibilities. And with older couples, I often help them take the goal off of performance in sex. It doesn't have to be about performance or about that there is a goal, an end. Sex doesn't have to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. It can.
Right.
It can.
That's a good reminder about just touching, like just massage, or there doesn't have to be anything at the end happening. Exciting.
That's right. And in fact, the sensate focus exercises that I give in the book. So it's taking turns massaging each other. And the first stage 1 is head, hands, and feet. No genitals. The second stage, a little more of the torso, the legs, a little more of the body, but still no penetrative sex. The third stage, yes, some penetrative sex after all this full body caressing. And then finally, the fourth stage is intercourse, if the couple wants to do that. But outer course can be a lot of fun. You asked me when we were off screen, what's the biggest question that I get from my couples? And so I think it's the biggest question the most frequent question that I get is, how can we get sex back into our relationship?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It's a good question. And a lot of couples have become through the years more like brother and sister, and they may have a lot of commitment and intimacy in their relationship, but they've lost the passion. And so they come to me, and they can jumpstart and re-eroticize their sex life. It's possible. And there are lots of resources available in books and other kinds of therapy. But getting sex back in their relationship, that is a question that many couples, they're not satisfied and they seek pleasure. And, think about it. Sex is play. We got to get away from the idea that, and guys fall into this category no matter their age. We have a job to do here.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the performance anxiety. So when you take penetrative sex off the sex menu,
Mm-hmm.
they often relax and either can not come as quickly as they did, premature ejaculation, or they can get an erection because they're not worried about it so much. Or maybe they've taken a Viagra or one of the other. As a class, they're called PDE5 medications. So there's Cialis and Levitra and others. But
Right.
The guy who's taking these, by the way, should talk to his urologist and learn that he should not take this after eating a whole lot of food. He needs to take it on a relatively empty stomach because the blood is busy digesting the food if he's eaten a lot, and that blood needs to go right to the penis.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So it sounds like you're there. I think a lot of people we're under the myth that we're not really going to have an active sensual sexual life after like menopause, for example, for women, or, after age 60, or that's a myth, right? A false myth.
Well, it happens for couples, if both couples if the man and wife are together, or the committed partners are together, and they've been together a long time, and they've decided that they don't want sex anymore. It's just too much of a hassle. The medications are interfering with their sex drive, and even the man's ability to get an erection, even. Or for a woman, oftentimes it's the ability to reach orgasm. And if she's low on estrogen, that's also a problem. But there's so many factors here. So,
Right.
But you can re-eroticize sex. And so the way you touch and you massage, that really does help a lot of people. Women with low desire need to see their naturopath. Do you have naturopaths in Canada?
I do.
Of course you do.
Yeah,
of course.
absolutely. Yeah. I just saw one a couple of weeks ago. Mm-hmm.
Good. So I work with a naturopath who specializes in sexual medicine. So that's good. It's the mind-body approach to.
I've never heard of that.
Female sexuality. Yeah. And when I lived in Los Angeles, I worked for UCLA's Female Sexual Medicine Center. And that's where I got really familiar. This was a number of years ago. Really familiar with the mind-body approach. Sex starts in the brain.
Yeah.
So we've got to have the man needs to know that he needs to give his woman emotional foreplay.
Right. I actually heard that the biggest for women, the biggest sex organ was actually the brain.
Yeah.
Connecting with the mind.
Too. For men too. And because and I also tell women that they should just do it. They may not feel desire, but if they start, unless she has a lot of pain issues, and we can get to that in a minute, perhaps, but to just do it, because what happens is for lots and lots of women, arousal precedes desire. And so the woman starts to get turned on. And the man needs to know that the clitoris, the only function of the clit is pleasure. The penis has about 3 or 4 functions, at least. And the only function of the clitoris is pleasure. And it has 6,000 to 8,000 nerve fibers. It's the clit, and then the legs that go under the labia,
Right.
clitoral legs. So the woman needs to get familiar with her clitoris, and so does the man.
Right.
And this can make a big difference. But if a woman is low on hormones, and after menopause, perimenopause can go on for years, and the hormones are all shifting. But menopause is when a woman has not had a period for one whole year.
Right.
And then she's officially in menopause. Now, what I did 20 years ago was to go on bioidentical hormone replacement therapy right away. I recommend it. You have to go to a doctor. You have to get a blood test to see where your levels are. If your estrogen is low, and if breast cancer doesn't run in the family, you might be a candidate for hormone replacement therapy.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah,
There's sort of a bad myth about HRT causing strokes, or there's sort of talk about that.
Yes. Well, there was an NIH study, and that's U.S. National Institute of Health study. It was published in 2004, and I remember it very well. A lot of women went off of HRT, but that study was flawed, and it's been proven that many times. And bioidentical hormone replacement therapy is the way to go. We have receptors in our bodies for these bioidentical hormones that are compounded in a pharmacy. And
okay, that's really good information, I think, for a lot of people.
Yes, it is. And also women really often need, even if they don't do bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, they can get topical estrogens from their doctor, Vagifem and other things, extra test. And so that can improve the ability to reach orgasm, for one thing, because it's very much tied in. And with desire too, and testosterone. We need testosterone. Testosterone makes us feel better and gives us energy and keeps depression at bay. Testosterone is a good thing, but it's probably in Canada it's the same, but here it's very well controlled. So you really have
I don't really know. So would you suggest then that most people, because I didn't think about a lot of this until I started talking to you, that most of us ask our doctors for the sex hormone blood test to find out?
Yes,
I
that's right.
don't think we think about it on our own. We don't really know to ask.
And a lot of blood tests don't cover it unless you ask. As a woman, you have to ask, I want my sex hormones tested. Estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, which is a precursor to testosterone. But even if you just get those three, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, that'll be good. That can make such a difference and then the other thing, I was just talking about the clitoris. If men are microwaves and women are slow cooking ovens, women are slow cooking ovens. It takes us a while to warm up.
Yeah, that's right.
And men need to realize that. The other thing is that if a woman still has her uterus, and many of us do, the uterus sits above the cervix, and that until the woman is aroused enough for penetration, it usually takes 15 to 20 minutes if they're going to have penetrative sex, that the uterus needs to lift up and away from the top of the cervix. And that doesn't happen until she's really aroused. And so then during intercourse, if the penis hits the cervix, then it hits the uterus, and that's uncomfortable. So another reason for having a lot of foreplay and just enjoying it. And two words I've used again and again: slow down.
Slow down.
Any age, slow down. Take your time, enjoy, be sensual. It's a great time to be sensual. And if a woman doesn't have a partner, then even if she does have one, but especially if she doesn't have one, I highly recommend masturbation. And it has a lot of health benefits. And I'm going to get into the overall health benefits of sex. But masturbation is really, really helpful. And a lot of women find a favorite sex toy. And there are lots of them. And they even now have what are called clit suckers. The technology is amazing, just amazing in the engineering of these sex toys. But it's,
Wow. That's
it's
great.
really, it's amazing how the clitoris can be stimulated that way. It's and then there are other sex toys, but masturbation is really important. Should we talk about the health benefits?
Yeah, let's talk about that. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
Because there's it's an overall holistic thing, isn't it? It's not just about, the body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's everything. It's mind, body, and a woman or a man. And I see a lot of couples who are older because I specialize as a gerontologist in aging and sexuality. They have to have the right mindset and do enough emotional foreplay and, set the scene, the lighting, right. Put around candles. I think dressing up for sex can be fun. If lots of women have body image issues, let them go.
Yeah.
Most men don't notice. They're just so happy to have you naked. They don't notice.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah. So, find, if you can find a long black nightgown that's kind of sexy that maybe covers some of body flaws, your perception. But, letting it go. So many women would have a much better time if they would stay in the moment, be mindful, stay in the moment. Don't, women multitask all the time. We have bigger corpus callosums. That's the connecting tissue between the right and left hemisphere. So that if we're having sex, when we had little children, we were having sex, we had to be able to hear the baby cry. Well, women, their babies have grown up and they're in their 40s now, and they still multitask because really they don't want to be there.
Oh.
So you have to stay in the moment or just do it if the relationship is good enough, and just do it because you may get yourself revved up. And but it's it really does help to remain sexual and you feel alive, when you're being sexual and you're touching each other and you're relaxing and you're saying sweet nothings to each other. And so,
and isn't there scientific like neurotransmitters, going off like serotonin and oxytocin in the brain? Like that's why we feel good, right? Like sort of the touching and the stimulation. That's why it's so nice. People usually like it.
Yeah, that's right. You're absolutely right, Vicki. We get this cocktail of feel-good hormones, especially with orgasm, but even just lying naked together and holding will express more oxytocin. And the more we're touched, the more we're likely to be touched. So we get oxytocin, we get endorphins. Endorphin comes from the Greek word meaning internal morphine.
Oh,
so
I didn't know that.
Endorphins make us feel good.
Yeah.
Runners get endorphins, the running high. That's the same idea. And, sex is really good exercise. It keeps the pipes open. It's very good to help prevent heart disease and possibly even prostate cancer. There's evidence that the more ejaculations a man has, he can, if it's only with masturbation, okay. But if it's with a partner, even better, because you get upped oxytocin. Right. But with ejaculation, it's thought that a lot of the carcinogens, the cancerous effects, are expelled in that ejaculation. And erections are good for erections. So men should get help from their urologist if they're having ED problems.
Right. That's great information.
Yes.
Super. Really great information.
And also with regular exercise, we need to exercise, of course, But sex is good exercise. And what happens with regular exercise and then having sex regularly, orgasms are easier. Orgasms are good for orgasms. They promote more orgasms, just like erections are good for more erections.
Right. If you don't use it, you lose it.
Exactly right. Use it or lose it. It applies in so many things in life.
Yeah.
In so many things. Research suggests that some arthritis sufferers have less pain for up to 6 hours after sex. So that's,
wow.
And then the other thing is that sex, having intercourse, strengthens the pelvic floor. And doing Kegels. If a woman doesn't have a partner, or if she has a partner who has erectile dysfunction, she should masturbate with a dildo, and she can do her Kegels onto the dildo in her vagina. And that'll keep those PC muscles strong. And guess what? That helps prevent urinary incontinence. And that is the biggest reason that women have to go into retirement homes.
Wow, that I did not know that. So the sex is like preventive aging in a way, preventive health issues.
Sure, and lots of preventive things, absolutely. And so let's and it helps you sleep better.
There's so many reasons to have sex. Yeah.
And that we go back to the oxytocin. It's the touching. That's why my touching exercises in my book, Love in the Time of Corona, are so valuable. I've had so many couples, not only in my own practice, but people who've read the book say, oh, we love these full body caressing exercises. And especially, it's all outer course. Everything but penetrative sex is outer course. Kissing and touching. Okay, but back to the health thing, because I know we don't have a lot. I want to talk a little bit about mental health. Couples who have frequent sex are more bonded and they argue less. And when they do have arguments, they get over them faster. Research has shown this.
Wow.
And it makes you happier. Just makes you happier.
Yeah.
You feel alive.
Yeah. Yeah. When you feel loved, right? You feel loved, like you're touched and you're feeling loved. And
Yes.
You feel you're in your body more, you're present.
That's right.
Definitely.
You need to be in your body. And so ideally, and I did my PhD thesis a long time ago, my doctorate, on older women and women who'd been divorced or widowed and with new partners. And I did this when I lived in Hawaii. So there were a lot of, in my sample were Asian women married to Caucasian men. It was kind of interesting to see what different cultures, and I won't go into that. There isn't time, but it was very true that women needed to have more privacy. The children were launched, and maybe a new partner. They'd gotten really bored with their sex with the old partner, or they just weren't doing it. So a new partner, you get more dopamine. Dopamine is the hormone of arousal, but it needs novelty. Now, if you're in an established relationship and you want to start up your sex life again, you need to be very creative and try new things. A lot of times you do need a sex therapist or somebody to kind of help you, guide you. I give my couples all these fun homework assignments.
That's fun.
Yeah. So, but it is possible to get your sex life back on track. And I put this in my book. Remember, sex is fun, it's free, and it's the fountain of youth. I mean, lots of people tell me I look younger than my chronological years. And I do, partly because of bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, but mostly because I'm in a happy marriage that has good sex.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great.
So I haven't folded up my tent.
No. And you're not going to, it doesn't sound like.
No, you don't want to fold up your tent. That means you've disengaged. You want to stay engaged. And laughing together, because sex is play and sex toys are adult toys, right? Laughing together can be just great. and playful sex can engender that. And to be silly with each other requires a certain vulnerability. The old English word for silly was salag. Salag. And if you had salag in your life, silliness in your life, you were healthier, happier, more prosperous.
Oh,
yes. And so
that's
that it didn't used to mean ridiculous. So I recommend get some silliness into your life.
Yep.
You know,
I agree. I mean, especially in this time, like your book, in the time of Corona, right? We need more silliness. Yeah,
we do. We do need more silliness. And so I always say, the older you get, the better you get. Well, unless you're a banana. And in my life, I've been called Diana Banana by my sister when I was younger.
Because you're blonde, probably, right?
Well, yeah, but it rhymes. Banana rhymes with Diana,
mine is Sticky Vicki. I got Sticky Vicki. I know, or Vicalic. Yeah, because they rhyme.
Absolutely. So, so do you have any more questions or things that you think I should cover with this?
Well, I'm kind of curious, and our viewers might be curious too. What inspired you to write the book about love in the time of Corona? Because you wrote it during COVID-19. I'm assuming.
Yeah. So what was the pandemic?
Yeah. What was happening?
I've been wanting to write a book because I'm now in the book, I say more than 30 years, but I added it up. I'm actually, this year I will have practiced 40 years. So I've wanted to write a book. I've been published, as I said, in medical journals and some other, I used to write in Canada for Ageless Living magazine. Some of your,
I know that one.
Some of the viewers might remember Dr. Diana Wiley from the Ageless Living magazine. So I wrote probably over the years, maybe 6 or 7 columns, maybe a little more than that. Yeah. So I've been published other places, but I always wanted to write a book. And somehow the beginning of the pandemic, we're all under quarantine. And I was beginning to hear from my clients, and I had to fortunately, I was able to switch to Zoom because I couldn't see anybody in person. Now I'm doing all of my practice on Zoom. It's easier for my clients. And I see some people, like I have a couple that I see in Southern California. So I'm in Seattle. So
it's so convenient, isn't it? Yeah, it's really convenient.
It's convenient. And they don't have to find parking and all of that.
Exactly.
But see, the subtitle of the book is Advice from a Sex Therapist for Couples in Quarantine. Well, a lot of my couples said, oh, we're going crazy. We don't know what to do with each other. And it's too much togetherness, and we're fighting all the time. And so I was encouraged. I thought, okay, there's a book here.
Yes.
And I had all this experience, and so much to put into the book. And as one of the blurbers says on the back cover here, it's a year's worth of sex therapy in one volume. So
I love it. I think it's great. And it's so timely. And even though it says the word quarantine, I mean, I think that a lot of people have sort of their lives have shrunk and they've stayed close, like everybody. So people are still in their own little bubble as well. So it's still quite relevant. And it's always relevant. I think the book will always be relevant, especially the exercises.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Did I send you a book online?
No, I ordered it. It's coming.
Oh, you ordered it?
Yeah, I'm gonna do it. Yeah,
good girl.
Yeah.
The favorite exercises are the ones that I mentioned: the touch exercises, full body caressing,
Yep.
and then there's some other exercises where you get 44 choices of sexual activities you'd like to do, and so it's varieties of sexual behaviors here. And it goes on the next page. And yes, no, maybe. And whether you want to be the giver or the receiver.
That's super.
It gets couples talking. Sometimes to have a little structure like this.
Yeah.
The other thing that can help couples to get them talking is, what are your reasons for having sex? I have to find that. Okay, here it is. What are your reasons for having sex? So there's a list. You can copy this. My other website besides drdianawiley.com is deardrdiana.com, and that you can get a free copy of this, not the reasons, but the sexual behaviors. But the reasons, so you list 1 through 10, your most important reason, and then the least important. So you have things like accomplishment, affection, this is alphabetical order, bargaining, exchange, communication, concern for partner, duty, obligation. Procreation would probably be 10 for most seniors. Procreation is
definitely the last one. Yeah.
Recreation, play, spiritual bond, and tension release. So a lot of people don't even think about their reasons for having sex.
True. Yeah. I think, it sounds like people make it either it's an expectation, an obligation, or work. Some people are like, oh, it's too much work.
Yes.
The metabolism's low. Maybe they don't want to do, because I know our metabolism slows down, right? And so, but if you do the touching part, that's not work. You're just laying around, right?
Well,
so I think
you're receiving the massage, and when you're giving the massage, because you switch places, you should have some fun with it. If you're giving the massage, have some fun. Have some fun with the touching.
Yeah, put some music on for it.
Yeah, set the scene. Put some candles around. I think the ones that take the LED ones that take batteries are safer, and they look pretty real.
Yeah,
but you got to set the scene, and I cover that in my book too.
Oh, good. That's good.
And because at that time I said plan your date night at home because we couldn't go out. But I encourage, now that we can go out more, I encourage couples to have a date night. Now, if you're in a resident community, that may be a little harder to make happen, but not necessarily. Or you could have now the weather's improving. You could have a picnic some Saturday afternoon outside.
But that's a good point you bring up, because a lot of seniors are in, assisted living or independent living. And so it's a community. And so they don't actually get a lot of privacy, or they have, ones like my mom lives in a studio. So there's all these people living in studios. And so trying to create, the intimacy and the sensuality when you're living in sort of this community environment, that can probably be very challenging.
I think so. And the other thing is that I'm more familiar, of course, with retirement homes in the U.S., but not enough of them provide privacy for their older residents.
Yeah, that's interesting, because we probably won't post this part, but actually, is there anything else you wanted to add before I was going to just take us off the recording? If there's anything else you wanted to.
Yeah,
right?
I do.
Okay, go for it.
So I think finally, I would like to say, laugh more, smile more, talk more, complain less, please. Complain less. A lot of people, complain all the time, and it's kind of old. Hold hands more, and touch each other a lot more. Yeah.
That's nice. That's brilliant. Okay, thank you.
You're
Dr.
welcome,
Diana.
I'm so happy, and I'm glad to return when asked.
Super. Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You've been listening to the Blue Book Podcast, brought to you by Seniors Serving Seniors of Victoria. Today's guest was Dr. Diana Wiley, a licensed marriage and family counselor from Seattle, Washington. She was in conversation with Vicki Pilot, the executive director of Seniors Serving Seniors. Today's theme music was courtesy of Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com, licensed under the Creative Commons License 4.0.